I'm your first selectman, Lori Spielman. Welcome to our show. And my special guest today is Mr. Matthew Reed, our town administrator. Welcome.
Welcome, Lori. Thank you.
And we'll get a lot of great information and a few updates from Mr. Reed. But also, I want to give you some updates of what is going on in town. Arbor Park is getting renovated. It's way overdue. We put together a grant a few years ago, and the problem was with the farmers market and all the foot traffic and driving on it, the tree roots have come to the surface. I have a few pictures from the farmers market. They'd have to put cones out so people won't trip on the roots, and it was very unsafe. So we came up with a grant and gave us the ability to do the park over. Meanwhile, we moved the farmers market, but with this, it's going to be a beautiful park that people can enjoy at all times. We put a soil amendment into the soil, and basically this helps keep the soil up, and the crown of the root, the grass, stays so it doesn't get squished and flattened out from any heavy traffic or people walking on it. So it'll really withstand heavy foot traffic, which I think is great. Also, a few of the trees were bad. I had a few pictures of them. We took them down, and we're just going to put newer trees in. And that way, the park will be great for the next 20 years. In the middle of the park, we put wood chips down, which we brought them out to the drip line of the trees. And we are going to put the picnic tables so people can be underneath the trees, having their lunch or whatever, just sitting there watching the cars go by. And it's easier for our Department of Public Works to mow and maintain. So the park will be great.
You know, I noticed you and I happened to be driving by when they were doing some of this work, and they had added some topsoil, and then they were dumping these green this material on top of the soil. And then they were working that into the soil. I don't know a lot about landscaping. I know you have a background in landscaping. And so are you saying that that material, that's the material that's going to strengthen the soil?
That is correct. That helps hold the grass and the crown of the grass will be protected.
I saw that somebody had asked, you know, there's a townwide Facebook chat area, and there had been some folks holding up these fibers and were curious what their purpose was and if they were there intentionally. So it sounds like this is how they amended the soil to make it more durable.
That is correct. And also they do that in a lot of football fields, stadiums, soccer fields, so it's used worldwide. So it's not something that's new. And also they hydroseeded it for a finish. So when they put that down, they used a top dresser, and then they tilled it in, and then they also oscillated it in. So it really loosened up the whole soil, so it has a really great area to have a nice, healthy root mass.
What a great time of year. I mean, we've had great weather for that. I mean, although people don't like long rainy days, but when you're trying to grow something, whether it's crops in a field or grass in a newly planted area, that soft rain that we had over the weekend, and now we have this bright sun and the heat, I imagine that grass will just come to the surface as soon as possible.
And with that grant also, we're getting new trash cans and new benches. And some of the benches are going to be donated. They'll have plaques on it. One will be Nicholas DiCarletto, also Robert Tedford, because they sat out there a lot of times and ate their lunch. So it amazes me the foot traffic that park gets. People walk all hours of the day there.
It's a beautiful spot. I know, that's one of the things I love about working in town. Town Hall is literally in the center of town, and whether I need to mail a letter, I can walk down to the post office and mail a letter. And if I need to go see the superintendent, I walk out the door and I walk to the superintendent's office. Human Services, I just walk a little bit further. But no matter what, you got to walk by Arbor Park, and it's a great opportunity to, one, for any of the employees who are going from building to building to walk the trail and get a little exercise, but not a day goes by or not a trip goes by where I don't see somebody with their dog or see a family or see someone enjoying the peacefulness of that particular park. So it really is a great spot and a great location.
So that's one thing going on in town. Also, the library expansion of the parking lot. That's quite a project we have going on.
There's a lot of, that construction is pretty remarkable. They're doing a couple of things. I noticed that they've done, they took the old plantings out from around the foundation of the library. They cleaned that up. I think, are they going to put the outdoor reading garden? There was talk of an outdoor reading space. I think that was maybe something that had to, that was a proposal. It was a nice concept. I think ultimately the cost didn't fit in with the grant amount, and so that had to be taken out. But they are going to expand the parking. Some people ask, why do you need to expand the parking? But the reality is, you know, anybody who's experienced the library understands the robustness of the programs that they have morning, noon, and night, and on the weekends, and they're very well attended. Instead of having people park over at the church across the street and walk over, we now expand that parking space so it provides a better opportunity for folks to park right there without having to cross the road. We know Maple Street and Main Street are very heavily traveled, so it's an opportunity for people to be able to park on site and and get into the library.
And what was happening too is a lot of people were parking along Main Street, which was causing some traffic problems, and you just don't want anybody to step out of their car and get hit. So this was property that the town purchased. There was a older home on it. We took it down, and we did everything in stages. And to save money, Department of Public Works came in and took all the plantings out around the library and all the old stone and everything else. They were just so overgrown. And what would happen was you'd get things blowing, garbage bags or different things, and it would get stuck into all the bushes, and they were constantly cleaning stuff out. So this should make it great for the next 20 years.
I think it's going to look fabulous. And, you know, as a town administrator, obviously I take phone calls from members of the community who are curious about projects. We're in the prime of budget season right now with a budget referendum coming up in a few days. And folks are interested in how projects like the Arbor Park project and the library project. I know we're going to talk about the lighting project. We also had streetscaping done over on Maple. You're going to talk a little bit more about that. I imagine people want to know how that impacts the budget and say, geez, why are we spending the money on this? And one of the points I try to make clear to them is that these projects were planned and paid for I'm going to say long ago, but it wasn't that long ago. But nonetheless, these projects don't have an impact on our current budget or next year's budget. These are projects that were funded either through federal funding, through the ARPA program, through DEEP funding, which is through the state. I know ultimately all of these things come out of the taxpayer's pocket, right? I mean, but they don't come from the town of Ellington's budget. And so the library is the same way. That was a grant-funded project that's been in the works for years, and all of these things are coming to fruition, it seems, at the same time. But I think it's important that folks know that these projects, other than the Windermere School, which will be bonded as it goes through the different phases. The other projects don't have an impact on this year's budget or next year's budget because they've been paid through other outside grant sources.
Now the sports field lighting, the the voters voted for that.
Correct.
So
Correct.
That's a little different.
Right.
We also have some pictures of Penny Street Field, which Earthlight is running the project, and the lights are already up.
Right.
And after that, they are moving to Tedford Park. So also we did a streetscape planting, which is on Maple Street, and we put in 22 new trees, which I think is great. People don't like it when we cut trees down, so we put in, and also the Troops donated 5 more trees, so that gives us a total of 27 new trees, and that is the new farmers market. And the location is 72 Maple Street. The town purchased a few years ago 3 houses. We took them down. My concept was to purchase the property for future expansion of Center School, because we're stuck if we don't do it.
Right.
And I talked to the superintendent, a few people, if they had any intention of that happening in the next 5 years. They said no. So we put the farmers market there. And I just want to thank Diane and Tom Troop. Tom spent over a month there grading and all sorts of things. They put in new picnic tables, You've attended a few times.
It's a great location. So it's called Market Park, and you know, Lori is very doesn't like to talk about a lot of things she does on her own, but she was very generous. Her and Kathy were very generous to donate the resources necessary to put the nice new sign out there on Maple Street that says Market Park. And so that's where the farmers market will be located. They were a little hesitant initially to make the move from Arbor Park. There was talk of them going into the town center park or right there at the intersection of one Maple Street and Main Street. That wasn't the best location, and so they embraced this location now. And so we've had those trees planted. They've planted more trees. So as the years go on, we'll get more shade in that park and make it even more comfortable. But this will be the third week of the farmers market at the new location, and I've gone twice. So the first 2 weeks this year, and this past weekend was a little challenging because we had a lot of wet weather. But I was interested to see how the park held up with the new planting, the new grass at the new market park, and it held up really well. And they still had great attendance. I mean, everybody in the region, I think, knows of the Ellington Farmers Market.
I think it's way better than when it was at Arbor Park. This is so much easier to park. Everything's flat, and I think it's great. People seem to be very, very happy
It's a
with
great
it.
enhancement, I think, for the park. It's an additional park for the town. And we know that, and we've made it clear with the farmers market people that if others need to use that park at other times during the week or weekend, outside of the times of the farmers market, they're able to do that. There's a pavilion there, there's electricity there, there's water there, and so it's another great venue for people to engage in events.
Yeah, I want to thank Barnyard for donating the pavilion. And also, we're going to have a pavilion from the senior center, which we're going to move down there. So we'll have two nice pavilions for people, because they always have a band and all sorts of
Right.
different things going on.
Right.
So I think it's great. Also, DPW had an open house.
Well, that was it was that long, rainy, misty day where even though the radar showed it wasn't raining, it's managed to rain all day long. And the number of people, they said it was the most attended
Open house.
that they've had since they've been doing that. And it was amazing. I mean, it was a great thing to do, especially if you have a family, you have young kids, they get to touch the trucks, they get to sit in the trucks. And you're always, I know when our kids were young, you're always looking for something to do on a day like that. And they were there, and there was food, there were hot dogs, there was ice cream. They got to but they got to ride in one of the big trucks and just see all of that equipment, whether it's a grader or whether it's a loader or a backhoe or just a big plow. I enjoyed it. I saw you there. I know you enjoyed it. It was a great event.
You know, I love watching the kids, and some were there for hours. The parents couldn't get, and then one parent went and got another parent to come
Right.
down, and it was a very good. So I want to thank Tom and all his guys for putting that on. Also, if you go by Department of Public Works, there's a pickup out there,
Right.
and they are taking different things for
Food. Yep.
the Ellington Food Pantry. So if you have any donations, that would be great. Drop them in. They take them in every night and start the next day fresh.
You know, Ellington, we're a great community, and we get a lot of support from the businesses. We get a lot of support from the community in general. But we do have people that are challenged when it comes to food and rent, and we understand that. And our food bank which is housed over at the Human Services site, is really starting to outgrow that building. I know there have been times where, we're out actively looking for property where we can have our food bank because it's unfortunately quite busy. We get a lot of members of the community that come in looking for food from the food bank. And so I would encourage anybody who is interested in donating, whether it's food goods or other non-perishable items, reach out to South Windsor Human Services. You can stop by their building, which is right over next to Arbor Park.
Ellington.
And, I'm sorry?
Ellington.
What did I say? Did I say some other community? Oh my goodness. So they can reach out to Ellington Human Services and make any donations of any of those, whether it's food or non-perishable items. they
Paper
will
towels,
not go to
diapers,
waste.
anything.
Exactly.
Now people are always looking for that. So also big news yesterday, the town of Ellington received a bronze award for,
Sustainable CT.
yeah, can you talk
Correct.
about that a little bit?
Yeah, so this has been an initiative that's been going on for, year and a half, 2 years. This is an opportunity for Ellington to engage in a number of resource conserving initiatives that we've been involved. The Board of Education has been involved with it. The Department of Human Services has been involved with it, and a number of the staff in Town Hall have been involved in working through these different projects and initiatives to ensure that Ellington is being resourceful as far as recycling, energy consumption, use of solar where appropriate. And for all of these projects that you engage in, you get points and you submit proof of your initiative to Sustainable CT, and then they evaluate and they award you credits based on the number of points essentially that you get. And so we were able to achieve bronze status, which shows that Ellington is working its way towards conserving energy, using renewable resources, encouraging folks to recycle and reuse materials. And it's a pretty encompassing program. A Sustainable CT is statewide, and it's something you can certainly look it up and you can see what towns have achieved silver status, gold status, bronze status, and what the different initiatives are.
So I just want to throw this out, a little sideline, that at Department of Public Works, they are collecting food waste. You can put it in a barrel and keep it for a week and then throw it into this special dumpster, or you could purchase biodegradable food bags that you could throw in. And why we do that is it saves on our tonnage out of our bulky waste,
Right.
or regular waste.
The idea is to remove food scraps from our traditional waste cycle because, like you said, that's tonnage, it adds up. So if we separate the food scraps and we leave the trash only in the trash, then when it comes time for trash to be picked up, the hope is that we have less weight that gets dumped into a fill or that has to be processed. So we save money there. There's an expense to processing the food scraps, but that can also be, that goes to, there's a couple of different locations in the state where the food scraps go. There's a digester and other places where it's then transformed into other
Energy.
uses, other forms of energy to be used, right?
Yeah. So also at DPW, if you have any household or any items that are still good that somebody else may be able to use, we are taking them, or we're getting rid of electronics. We have a whole area for electronics and all sorts of different things.
Have you been, I know you've been over to the swap shop. I stopped in there during Public Works open house. And if you go into, on Maple Street is where the Department of Public Works is. And as immediately you drive in the driveway, to the right is where our recycling area is. So if you have a car battery that you need to get rid of, you have some metal to get rid of, mattresses, you have to reach out to them and figure out exactly where the mattresses need to go, but nonetheless, they'll collect them. And the other thing they have is a swap shop. So if you have something at the house that you aren't quite sure, it's not bad, it doesn't need to be thrown out, but you don't need it anymore. Maybe it was passed on from another relative, or maybe you just don't need it anymore. You can bring it to the swap shop and just give it to our recycling manager is a man by the name of Sam Saunders. Bring it right in, give it to Sam, and he'll put it on the shelf. And 20 minutes later, somebody else will perhaps walk in and they will need exactly what you left on that shelf. So you
Vacuum cleaners, all sorts of
you
stuff.
can leave something, you can take something. There's desks, I see typewriters, computers, monitors. So if there's something you're looking for at home, pop in there, you might find a used one that would be helpful. A lot of different tools. There are some things in there that can't really be identified, but nonetheless, somebody may find a use for them. So it's another great service that's offered by the town, the swap shop.
Matt, with all these great things, let's talk about the budget. We started working on this how long ago?
Well, we start working on the budget right after the calendar turns at the beginning of the new year. We start to work with all of the department heads. My position came into being in August of last year. So I'm the first town administrator that Ellington has had. And so I'm being newly injected into this whole process of the budget for Ellington. I was involved in another municipality where I'd worked previously, but now Ellington is now has my position to work with the finance director. And so together we work with all the department heads, and they're asked each year to build their budget for the following year from the ground up. It's called zero-based budgeting, where they have to justify every dollar that they get and every dollar they expect to spend. And that's for pens, pencils, paper, staff, programming, materials that they may need. And this is for all of our departments: human services, youth services, recreation, public works, human resources, everybody. And then of course all the boards and commissions, same thing. Some boards and commissions operate with very little expenditure. Others are involved in more outgoing activities and they need funding. So we ask all of our boards and commission chair people to do the same thing and present the budget to the finance director and myself. And so we then give them a period of time to do that. We certainly have meetings with the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. Both of those boards are elected and they meet every month. So the Board of Finance, their biggest responsibility in town is preparation of the annual budget. So we meet with the Board of Finance and we get direction from the Board of Finance as to what they expect to be able to, when they look at things like the mill rate and any increase or proposed increase in taxes, they kind of set the rails as to where we should go. So we meet with our department heads, and we knew, particularly this year, I think not just in Ellington, but even all the surrounding towns, and you can read every day in the paper the challenges that municipalities are facing. We knew going into it that it was going to be a challenging year. We all are experiencing the cost of fuel increasing, the cost of insurance increasing, the cost of materials that you need to do your job, whether it's road overlay or whether it's fuel. Everything has gone up, and in some cases it's gone up exponentially. And we know, just like we at home deal with these challenges, as a municipality we deal with these challenges too. So our direction to our department heads was, we really have to limit new expenditures, new programming. We need to really vet. We need to figure out if increased costs are going to be worth those increases, because we knew it was going to be a challenge for us to put forth significant increases in the budget.
And a lot of these are out of our control. And what I think is amazing, we had a couple town meetings, and the last one we had two gentlemen stand up and say, my costs at home have gone up for this, but we're no different.
Right.
Our costs have gone up also. So we're kind of in the same boat as everybody.
Right. Our goal is to, one, we want to encourage people to vote, right? Everybody needs to vote come the referendum, which is going to be next Tuesday, which is the day right after Memorial Day. We need people to come out to vote. Everybody votes at the senior center. Whether you choose to vote yes or vote no, that's certainly your prerogative, but we just want people to come out and vote. We're a town of nearly 17,000 people, and when we have votes like this historically, how many come out to vote? Between 900 and 1,200 people, if that.
Which is pretty sad.
Which is, well, it's a low turnout, and we want people to, again, whether they vote yes or no on the budget, that's totally their prerogative. But we want people to understand that when we put together this budget, we don't do it without heavy thought. I mean, there's significant thought. We cut nearly $1 million from the budget before it was even presented to the Board of Finance. The finance director and myself went through this, and obviously as the first selectman, you were involved in these conversations. The fire department is challenged when it comes to volunteers, and they have a crucial job when it comes to public safety, and we need our firefighters to respond. So one of their proposals was to start to transition from a fully volunteer model to a paid model, where some of your firefighters are being compensated. They're compensated right now, but it's minimal compensation based on their involvement in responding to calls. But they wanted to have part-time people each day of the week, and that's a challenge for us. We knew was going to be very expensive.
Matt, tell me, what if I vote no? What is the impact of that?
So, for the town to hold a referendum, cost between $7,000 and $8,000. So if people vote no, and again, it's the prerogative of the people, if that's what they choose to do, that's fine. We will then reassess the budget. But understand that the no vote means that we're going to have to cut some services. Something's going to have to be cut. And in order to make a cut that is significant enough to matter to your own budget, it would have to be something larger. I mean, some of the large things that we do that there are alternatives for are things like curbside pickup. And I'm not saying that we're going to get rid of curbside trash pickup, but theoretically, if you got rid of that, that's a very expensive program. People would then have to find another way to get their trash picked up. And so they're still going to have to pay for it one way or another. We think we offer the best bargain. Bulky trash pickup is another service that we offer. Again, we pay for it as the town. You would have to pay for that as an individual. Educational programs, again, I can't speak for the superintendent of schools, but obviously for them to make cuts that are going to impact what you spend on taxes, it would have to be something significant. So not to mention the fact that a no vote is actually a vote for spending another $7,000 or $8,000 because we would then have to have another referendum. So it's kind of a catch-22. It goes round and round. The budget is increased this year. It's about 4.5% increase, about a $3 million increase. And we've done our best to explain what all these increases are. And of course, this process has been very open and public. It's been published on our website. We've had a number of public meetings and public hearings to address all of the budget issues. But unfortunately, we don't get a lot of public involvement until we get to this point where people see that taxes are going to increase, and then people tend to get very vocal. And so there's a level of frustration because you wish people were involved earlier in the process so they could understand what a yes vote means and what a no vote will mean. So our big message is that people need to go out and vote, whether you choose yes or choose no. And if you have questions about what is included in this year's budget, you can certainly go to the town's website. It's all published there. It was published in the paper on the 7th of May. It'll be published again one more time before we have the final vote. But again, that's Tuesday. This coming Tuesday will be our vote on the budget, and we will see what happens after that.
Yeah, a lot of people put a lot of work into it. And one thing that has gone sky high for the town is electricity, because I've been watching the bills as they come in. Also, people don't realize the town buys a lot of sandstone, gravel, blacktop. Everything has gone crazy.
One of our strategies, I know before I started, to help save on electricity, heating, and air conditioning costs was to close the town hall on Fridays. So our employees work Monday through Thursday. They still work the full work week, the number of hours. We have that long day on Monday. But the idea was if we had town hall closed, we could save money, and the town hall annex save money on electricity for heating and air conditioning and things like that. So we're trying different strategies to save everywhere we can, but it's like chasing, it's like chasing a ball. It just keeps moving.
Right.
The target keeps moving all the time.
Matt, I wish we could talk more, but
We can't.
thank you so much for being on today.
I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to the people and let them know where Ellington is
Right.
at today.
And if you have concerns or questions, please come in and see us.
We are always available. There's nothing more frustrating than people not understanding they can call me or they can call Lori and get the information that they need. So thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.